I'm going to try and cover quite a few things, so I'm going to jump through quite a few slides. But effectively, there's one thing that I'd really like advice with. So that's kind of something that I definitely want to talk about, which is, where am I going to put this? Okay, let's put that there. So there's one thing that I want to make sure that I ask your advice about, which is, I used to be a lecturer in game design at London South Bank University, so that was more video gamey. Then I was a lecturer in playable narratives at Winchester School of Art. And now I'm starting a new job, and for the job I have to design this new MA. And the MA is called Interactive Narrative Design, and it's at Exeter University. So I have a lot of kind of questions in my head about how can this work in a university. There's loads of things that I find exciting about games design context and things like Now Play This that I feel like are better than university culture, you know, and like, so how can you fit that back into a university? What's difficult, you know, and it's things like, instead of giving people books to read, you might give them cookbooks or things like, you know, like games cookbooks and stuff like that. So I have a lot of kind of anxiety that I'm working through about how to approach something like that within academia. Like, so if you yourself have had experience of like studying games, teaching games, I'm really, really interested in getting tips, particularly because I don't have any degrees in game design, so I feel like quite a weirdo to be doing this. But I associate game design with being kind of a weirdo anyway, but I feel like I'm on the fringes of quite a lot of disciplines. So I hope it follows on quite well from what we were just talking about as well, because I want to talk about being on the fringes of geography. So my PhD was actually in geography, and my new MA is going to be in a literature department. So I want to talk very quickly about games as maps, mapping as gaming, but also games as books and books as games. In terms of my own practice, I do things that are relatively, you might think of it as experience design. So I create interactive ambisonics, so spatial sound. This was a project where it's using sonar, ultra-distance sonar, so that people moving around change the composition of the sound. This was sort of an escape room using ultralight based on real media histories. It's often very researched. This was a show last year at Glastonbury Festival in which the audience were interacting with this live 360-degree cinema. So the audience, by breathing, moving, and things like that, they were changing the composition live. So I do a lot of live stuff, but I'm really interested in this sort of the geography and specialist knowledge, specialist tools. It really follows on from this archaeology thing. But because I trained in my PhD as a geographer, I'm interested in field work, and not just site-specific, but like terrain-specific. And I think terrain-specific is quite an interesting one. It might have been what we were discussing yesterday as site-generic, in that, you know, what about a game that you can only play at the coastline, or a game that you have to play on a hill, or, you know, a game that you can only play in certain kinds of weather? And, you know, I'm interested in these kind of like deep environmental games, you know, drawing on skills of field observation. And also, I love stuff. So I know games are really cool when you don't need anything, but I love games where you do get something, where it's like, here's your compass, or like, here's your special thing that now you're going to use. So like, specialty things I love. I made this game that was on an uninhabited island. So to play this game, you needed an uninhabited island. It was the result of a 2-month residency, but you might be able to see this, but this was a real-world game, but it was very inspired by Dear Esther. And the island is in Finland, so it was entirely in darkness. And I lived there for 2 months. There were no other people on the island. I lived there over winter, and then made this game. And because the island is in darkness, the game is played with torches, and it triggers different kind of responsive aspects. You can see there in the bottom right-hand corner, that's actually a scene from Dear Esther, but the rest is just real photographs from my installation, which was in these bunker systems. It was kind of like a real-world walking simulator, which I guess is called a walk. And this is this game that I've been working on for a while. I feel like what I'm so excited about to come to something like this is that I know my weaknesses. So what I love is I love all these kind of complex ideas and stuff like that, but I'm not very good at making a really well-designed game that has events and conflict. So a lot of my games really just boil down to like, here's a map, we're all going to mess with it, and it's storytelling, and we're all going to learn something. But I'm not very good at making it a really like a game that you walk away from and you're really impressed with the game mechanics. But anyway, this was a game that I made where I started with field recording, and it is in a real landscape, which is a really strange landscape, because in the same, I actually have a game description here. It's maybe easiest if I just read the description that will give a kind of sense of the landscape itself. Which is, Ground rules. There we go. Okay. This is the real landscape. So I went to do field recordings and I ended up making a game. A small stretch of North Sea strand is host to several realities implausibly bound together. The deep time of a nuclear storage vault operating into the distant future, which is Cobra. A highly significant coastal trove of fossil vertebrates and skeletal fragments. 1 minute left. Okay, never mind. Anyway, this is a game that has to be played in a radioactive landscape with walkie-talkies. What I wanted to say about it, you can kind of see them there with a map rolling their dice. So that's here in this real landscape. We had Geiger counters and alarm clocks. But what I wanted to say about it is that I find it really exciting using real maps and real keys. And it's kind of similar to what we were talking about with archaeology, which is that I sometimes find books like this give me much more interesting resources than books that might be for game designers. So there on the left, this is now open source, and I just think I recommend it as a kind of making resource. I'm not going to talk about that. Maps themselves are really interesting and biased. This is one of my favorite maps to use in teaching, in that like this map is called the region of rat-bitten babies. The only information you can get from it is where are there rat-bitten babies and where are there not rat-bitten babies. These are some games made by my students based on real-world maps. This is the MA. I'm just going to jump through all of these. These are a million slides about the MA. That's great. You just did a high-speed MA. So like what I'm trying to figure out is like what activities work in this context, what don't. How can I make an MA that's like accessible to people who don't know about games, don't define themselves as people who are games players, don't feel authorized. And this is just some images based on that final conversation we had yesterday about analog. So indie producers, in games context might be making pamphlets, things like that. But I'm really interested in other media indie forms. So these, for instance, are some of my own albums. But this is the kind of stuff I'd love to do with other people. Like, what if you released a tape or something and it has dice and a map and so these kind of very, very lo-fi modes of production are also like super interesting to me. The end.
Hello, I'm Vivian, and here's my presentation on why I love the sound design in Celeste and why you should play it if you haven't already. Before I begin, there is mention of like mental health topics like depression, anxiety, so if you feel uncomfortable, you're free to leave at any time. For a round of hands, who here has played Celeste, so I can kind of get an idea? Oh, nice. Some of you have. Cool. You'll know what I'm talking about then. So Celeste is a game made in 2018 by Maddie Makes Games, an indie company. It's a 2D platformer, and it has mechanics such as dashing, jumping, climbing, and interacting with objects. There's also an assist mode in the game which increases accessibility, which gives you infinite dashes and makes you invincible, which is helpful if you suck like me. The plot is about a young girl called Madeline. She goes on a journey to reach the summit of Mount Celeste, and along the way she meets characters like, I don't know if you know Theo, he's lovely, I love him. The main themes are mental health, companionship, and overcoming adversities. And this is shown by Madeline's determination to climb the mountain, and she faces her alter ego known as Badeline, very creative. So, without further ado, here are 5 key reasons why I love the sound design. Number 1, every level sounds different without losing the plot. So, I don't think it will play. Oh no. Okay, I think you'll just have to imagine it, sorry about that. Or you can check it out later. But in chapter 1, it introduces the theme, and this theme threads throughout the whole game, so it kind of follows Madeline's individual journey, which is why I really like it. Sorry, I can't actually play it, if that's okay. I see. No, it's fine, don't worry. 2 is, it has sensitive depictions of mental health, which I really appreciate. So the music reflects Madeline's inner psychology. For example, in chapter 2, there's a very calm, reverberated piano when she is at peace. But in chapter 4, there's the anxiety track, which is eerie, fearful. It has these horrible, dissonant, swelling synths, which is still pretty cool, to be fair. So Leonard Rain, the composer, originally composed that track to mimic an anxiety and a panic attack. So there's a scene in a gondola where Madeline has a panic attack and her friend's trying to comfort her. And if you listen to the music, I think it depicts anxiety really well. It just made me really anxious, and like I had to breathe quite heavily when I was listening to it. Anyways, pretend you just listened to it. Yay. Number 3, the music suits the graphics really well. So the game uses pixel art and is inspired by an 8-bit retro style. And the music uses a chiptune synth, and it's got a very electronic feel. And Rain said that she felt inspired by Vangelis's Blade Runner 1982 score, which is an awesome film. So I think that the music has a sense of continuity with the visuals, and everything feels as if it fits within the universe, which is really effective. Yeah, nothing feels out of place. It's a cool soundtrack. Number 4, dying is okay. So even after you die, you quickly respawn, and it doesn't punish you for dying at all. Because the music continues to play after each death. I don't know, was it SSX tricky? Every time you die, you have to go back to the beginning, and it's really bloody annoying. And yeah, this game doesn't really do that. It kind of encourages you to try again, rather than trying to get things perfect, which I really appreciate. And after completing certain levels, you get more layers of music, which is supposed to be like a reward for, yay, you did it. Here's a cool, snare beat to this. Yeah, never mind. And number 5, unconventional stuff is cool, and it fits, which is kind of rare sometimes. So in the track called Confronting Myself, that's the battle between Badeline, the alter ego, and Madeline, the main character. The composer, Lena Rain, she uses a female Bulgarian voice choir. I wish I could imitate it. It's like something like, hey, yeah, hey, and it's really cool. It's really effective just because the voice is really gritty and very visceral, which you don't really hear in, traditional singing. But I think she uses that really well, and it really dramatizes the whole scene. In the Mirror Temple level, which is supposed to be a kind of scary, unnerving level, Lena Rain, she literally takes out like a phone recorder and just whispers and mutters. 1 minute, okay, I'm nearly done, it's all good. She literally whispers into the phone recorder. So she said, I wanted there to be something almost unintelligible, but something spoken in the background. So I took my handheld recorder, shut myself in the dark in the closet, and just kind of talked to myself. And it just sounds really cool. And it really does make you feel unnerved and what the hell is going on. So good job, good job. I don't have much time left, but here's the composer, Lena Rain. She's amazing. She also composed the track for Chicory, which I haven't played yet, but I heard it's a really good game. I think that is it. Thank you for listening.
All right, hi everyone. I'm here to talk to you today. Oh no, this slide is very badly made. And it's like cut off at the top. But at the top it says Amazons, the sci-fi LARP. This is a LARP that I ran 7 years ago. And as far as I know, it's the first gender-exclusive LARP that was run in the UK, run only for female people and non-binary people. And this is a Sappho quote. And I think the reason I'm really proud of it is that it's not only a LARP just for women and non-binary people, but it's also a feminist LARP about being together and being women. I thought I'd just use this talk to show you guys some photographs from the event. The premise of the story is that what if a group of alien super beings that just happen to all look like human women crash landed in Greece in 500 BC. And I wanted it to be this really uplifting LARP because I wanted to address this issue of LARP being very male dominated. It's about, like, on an average, like, fest size LARP with with several hundred people, you'd probably find about 2 women to every 3 men on a good day. And it makes it really hard for women to play combat roles because obviously we're on average smaller, and it can feel quite threatening to be in a fighting arena where you're only one of like the very few women in the crowd. So in terms of designing the mechanics, we also focused on things that we feel that women are known to be good at, such as cooperation. So in this picture, you can see 3 players holding hands, and they're doing a ritual that involves working together. And here's another one of those, where the mechanic involves being overpowered while holding hands. And we put a lot of emphasis on character creation through costume, and I designed the costume brief to be very like Athens but cyber, and I was really happy with how people used a lot of really glittery makeup, interesting colors. Everyone had a lot of fun designing their characters' costumes, and that's, in my opinion, about 50% of the joy of LARP, right? By the way, does everyone know what a LARP is? Yeah? Okay. If the room was bigger, I might like explain what LARP is, and of course, the joy of LARP is that you get to be really badass, you get to like beat things up. We ran a lot of storylines involving monsters to get people to be more comfortable with taking on their first combat role. Because as I said, a lot of women feel shut out of the combat roles in LARP, and I thought that was a massive shame, which is why I designed and wrote and ran this LARP. Here's another picture of somebody who had never played combat before. I think most of the people who chose combat roles in this LARP hadn't. We ran a plot line involving dissecting people for parts because we had this storyline that it was a generation ship. It was supposed to be a colonial ship, and they had to make interesting ethical choices about using resources versus not using them if they were from sentient creatures. And of course, I think women are known for designing chamber LARPs versus the other thing, which is fighting LARPs. Chamber LARPs tend to be indoors, they tend to be shorter, and they tend to involve a lot of emotions. So like Regency LARPs that are based on Jane Austen type storylines are very popular with women writers of LARP, but I kind of wanted this to be a feminist LARP in the way that I could mash those 2 genres together, like have this really high, sort of high octane emotions, but fighting. And that's one of the Medusa monsters that was executed. And yes, lots of drama, lots of burying your friends and crying about it. And we also had one storyline level where it was all done in the dark because we were exploring this crashed spaceship that was the colony ship that crashed in the same spot, also from the planet of Themyscira, where all of these Amazons were from. And we're just trying to do in-game archaeology. And I just loved seeing people have a lot of fun. People really get into their roles and say that it was uplifting for them in the feedback. That was, I think, my major joy, that other people enjoyed the fantasy world that I had written for them. I also think that it's really important to run again at some point. We only ran it once, and I think it's a shame. So the reason I'm giving this talk is I want to invite any other LARP refs. I really should have given this talk on Thursday where there were more people in the room because I want to recruit more refs. And if you want to read more about this LARP, I have a couple of blog posts about writing gender-exclusive and feminist LARPs on my blog on Medium. And please get in contact if you want to try your hand at being a ref for what I think is a really cool LARP. Thank you. We have a question.
This LARP thing you're running, it's London-based?
Well, I think the thing is that LARP sites are quite expensive. They're usually run in these very cheap scout camps outside of London for that reason. We ran it over a weekend, so from Friday night all the way to Saturday. On Friday evening, we just workshopped it a little bit, talked about the rules, and then official time-in. It's the link, it's like time-in is when everyone starts into their character. It was Saturday morning, then we had a big celebratory feast, like a sort of Thanksgiving feast, but without the colonial overtones, hopefully, on the Saturday night, and it was all in character. And then, of course, there usually is a big denouement on the Sunday for these weekend-type formats for LARP. If you could find me a cheap site in London, of course I would. But money is always an issue, especially with the proliferation of these very expensive, beautiful, commercially run LARPs. It's hard to match. That's the limiting factor, why it wasn't run in London and run in North Yorkshire instead.
Hi, my name is Sam. Maybe it's for the providence of God that there's less people here today, because I'm going to get real freaky with it. So what am I? I do a whole bunch of shit. I do game design, I do interaction, I do narrative, I do a bit of performance, some divinity and cosmology studies and practice. There's a few of us running around, magicians who incorporate esoteric practice with arts and games. And yeah, I think what I want to talk about today is just this interesting space of applied metaphysics. I had this thought the other day. Art and games is basically applied metaphysics. And we're going to talk about that, what that means. Ooh. But first, a bit of what I do. I do some coding visual artwork. So this is, it's supposed to be animated, but basically this was my attempt at making a game text that looked like a game but did not play like a game and actually function more as a video. So it allowed me to play around with like UI elements and esotericism and this idea of a transient, fleeting, playable thing. I also did an autobiographical GM-less role-playing game where I took me and 22 other friends and put them into put everybody into playable characters, into playbooks. So this is very much my own way of ethnographically mapping the Southeast Asian urban youth culture before COVID. And so yeah, I think it's pretty interesting, very niche. Horse Girl. In this game, you play a woman who consents to be surgically and mentally transformed into a horse by her lover. It's what it sounds like. And just to give you a heads up as to what unifies my practice, because I've had a lot of time to think about this. And I think because I jump around a lot, because I do all sorts of stuff like, I do performance. This is a bondage performance I did with my partner where I hooked up sensors to rope, tied my partner up, and performed Holy Communion in the church. This is a sand sculpture also in the church where I sort of like tried to spiritually find this spirit of creation and play in the work itself. This wasn't a final art piece. This was just a ritual I did in the church to find out what my next art piece would be. And this was the next art piece. And this itself was another ritual I did with a pendulum, which when you hit it, it changes a soundscape. So yeah, I think none of my work really is finished. I'm just really on this eternal quest to find something. And this something which I'm trying to find is this idea of wholeness in the fragmentedness, which is, I think everybody, a lot of people in the art and game space, when we when we engage with this idea of questioning, we're trying to resolve something which is an uneasiness inside of us. What I mean by this is that if you are, queer, or you're trans, or you're marginalized, you do feel this idea that reality shouldn't be what it is, that something is wrong, and you spend your whole life trying to come to terms and find wholeness with this fact that reality is wrong. As a Southeast Asian person, my whole reality is wrong because I have no identity to go back to. What the fuck is a Malaysian? I don't identify with the Malaysian cultural aesthetics. I came here and I lost that identity, and now I'm an immigrant. Now I'm a Londoner, but I'm not really a Londoner because I've only been here for 2 years. So it's a lot of these things it's unraveling. And as a post-colonial queer person, I exist in a state of chaotic unraveling. Other people also exist in a state of unraveling, and I think what I like about games is that we are able to come and collectively collaborate on an agreed version of reality, an agreed ritual, an agreed sense of space and time. This presentation was something I did for my university in an attempt to explain myself. So I'm sort of like collaging it together in an attempt to do that as well. Let's see, what else do we have? So basically everything I do is just trying to grapple this sense of fragmentedness. I believe that being fragmented is a call to the divine, because when you have nowhere to place your feet, all you can do is fall. But as you fall, you also have the chance to find out how to fly. And I think that really is the crux of everything I do, And I would like to continue working with people. I would like to continue to, not to say network, but find other people in this state of unraveling, such as myself, and sort of continue to make reality our own, because what was reality was stolen from me, a long time ago before I was born. So yeah, that's why I practice magic, and that's why I practice games. Thank you.
Hello. I need to time myself, or I'll talk for too long. I like to see it. Okay, so yeah, I just decided to talk about this about half an hour ago. But yeah, I wanted to talk about a performance that I recently did with my artistic partner, Emily Kuntz, who people were talking about yesterday. She ran some folk games workshops at Now Play This. So yeah, together, myself and Emily are professional dancers. Oh, I didn't know that you could see that. Sure. Our name together is Professional Dancers because we're in fact professional dancers. And we came up with this performance. We met in Toronto, and we had a beautiful night of karaoke that sort of bonded us together forever. And then in another night of karaoke, when we met again in Amsterdam, we came up with this idea. Basically, I studied art. I used to do performance art. I graduated, and I've been producing events and such ever since, not really making art. So I really wanted to, and I love collaborating with people. And when you meet someone and you just sort of click and you know that you could collaborate and you could make something fun together. So we came up with this idea. Basically, the premise is that Emily and I perform to an audience for 45 minutes. We dance for 45 minutes straight. There is a button in front of us that has 5 buttons, a play-pause button, a next track, a previous track, a speed-up button, so the music goes a lot faster, and a slow-down button, so the music goes a lot slower. And we dance, and the audience controls us with the buttons. Originally, we were going to do it for an hour, and then we decided in 45 minutes that I'm very pleased of. But yeah, I just want to talk briefly about how it went. Here's Nick. Nick helped us make the controller. We did this at a Maze, a games festival in Berlin. We made the controller out of this drinks crate, which was very good, and we stacked it on top of each other. So thanks, Nick. But yeah, it was, and then here is us performing. It was exhausting. It was very fun. And I think the thing that I want to talk about most is like how people reacted to the performance and how I would like to try it again to different audiences, because I think they'd react very differently. The audience that we performed to at Maze were all like people that are really into games, especially experimental games. They love to play, they love to press buttons. So when we started dancing, we thought that people might be a bit more tentative to like come up and press the buttons, but no, they were like up there slamming buttons to the point that some of the songs like couldn't even play because it was like we were like trying to dance and it was like, but the music, like they were so impatient. There's like a little, oh no, well, there was a little video that you won't get to see. There was a little video there, but it's fine. But yeah, basically it was the way that they were sort of so. The people almost like felt entitled over the button, like fights started to break out. It was very interesting. It sort of felt like it was something about human condition we were discovering. But yeah, I think the thing that I'd be interested to do is maybe show it to a dance audience where they're not as used to interacting with things. I think they may be a bit more tentative when they're like coming up to press the button. Or like even an arts audience. I'm like from an art background myself. And the main thing that I want to do when I perform and make art is like make people laugh, people have fun. I like making really silly things. And I find that sometimes when you perform in an art gallery, people are like, they're scared to laugh. They're scared to touch things. So I think if we did that in an art gallery, we could have been dancing like just with nothing going on for a long time before someone pressed that button. So yeah, that's sort of the thing that I'm really interested in finding out. I would love to perform it again. This is us at the end of the performance with our host, Garion, who like just wore this outfit, complete chance, and we showed up in these outfits. It was amazing. And yeah, I just wanted to leave you with this picture, which feels to me a bit like a Renaissance painting. There's something like very emotive about it. The people gathered around the button. Yeah, so if you want to talk about this sort of thing, I'd love to chat. If you have any ideas of like how we could do other iterations of the performance, or like if you have thoughts on audiences and stuff, yeah, that'd be amazing. Also on social media, I'm Suspicious, so connect with me. SUSE Picious. Okay, thanks.